Admiral Kale stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the stars grow thin. The massive vessel Eternal Dawn had been traveling for 6 months beyond the galaxy's edge, where space became dark and empty. His fleet of 12 ships carried the best scientists and explorers from across the Galactic Council. "Sir, we're getting something strange," said Commander Nira, her blue fingers dancing across the sensor controls. The Zephyrian's large eyes reflected the strange readings on her screen. "There are structures out here, big ones." Kale moved to her station, his heavy Vorthak frame making the deck plates groan. "That's impossible. Nothing can survive in the void between galaxies. No stars, no planets, no energy sources." "That's what makes it so strange," Nira replied, her voice filled with wonder. "These readings show artificial gravity wells, energy signatures, and what looks like stellar engineering." Scout Captain Dex slithered over from his post, his tentacles twitching with excitement. "Admiral, my long-range scouts are reporting visual confirmation. Someone has been moving stars around out there. Entire systems arranged in patterns that don't occur in nature." The bridge fell silent. For over 10,000 years, the Galactic Council had believed they knew every corner of their spiral home. They had cataloged every species, every world, every sign of intelligent life. The idea that someone could exist beyond the edge in the cold dark between galaxies seemed impossible. "Show me," Kyle ordered. The main view screen flickered to life, displaying images from the scout ships. What they saw made everyone gasp. In the distance, where there should have been only empty black space, clusters of stars formed perfect geometric patterns. Brilliant blue giants sat next to ancient red dwarfs, all held in place by massive artificial structures that gleamed with their own light. "By the void," whispered Nira. "Someone built this. Someone took dying stars and arranged them like a garden." "Sir," called Lieutenant Vez from the communication station, "we're receiving a signal. It's in multiple languages, including some from the old archives that haven't been spoken for thousands of years." Kale's blood ran cold. The old archives contained languages from species that had vanished long before the current council was formed. Languages that were supposedly lost forever. "Put it through," he ordered. A voice came through the speakers, speaking in perfect galactic standard. "Welcome, travelers from the inner spiral. We have been waiting for you to find us. Please approach without fear. We mean no harm to any living being." "They know our language," said Dex, his tentacles curling nervously. "They know we're here." "More than that," added Nira, checking her readings. "They've known we were coming for weeks. These energy signatures show they've been tracking us since we left the outer rim." Kyle studied the display showing the impossible stellar arrangements. "Who are you?" he transmitted back. "We are the ones your ancestors drove away," came the reply. "We are the children of Earth. We are humanity." The word sent shockwaves through every member of the bridge crew. Humanity was a myth, a story told to frighten children. Ancient legends spoke of a violent species that had threatened the early Galactic Council. A race so dangerous they had to be stopped before they could spread across the stars. "Impossible," breathed Kyle. "Humans are just stories. Ancient propaganda about some long-dead threat." "Sir," Nira's voice was shaking as she read her instruments. "The energy patterns around those stellar arrangements, they're not just moving stars. They're keeping them alive. These should be dead systems, but something is feeding them energy, making them burn brighter and longer than they should." The voice came again. "Admiral Kale of the Vorthak Empire, Commander Nira of Zephyr Prime, Scout Captain Dex of the Mollusk Confederacy. Yes, we know who you are. We know all your names, all your species, all your histories. We have been watching the galaxy grow and change for a very long time." "How do you know us?" Kale demanded. "Because we never stopped caring about our home," the voice replied, and now they could hear something like sadness in it. "Even after your ancestors cast us out into the dark, we never stopped watching over the galaxy we once called home." Lieutenant Vess looked up from his station with wide eyes. "Sir, I'm reading massive structures ahead. Not just the star arrangements. There are cities, stations, entire worlds that shouldn't exist." "Impossible," Kale repeated, but his voice lacked conviction. "Nothing is impossible when you have had 10,000 years to learn and grow," the human voice said gently. "We invite you to dock at Horizon's End, our closest station. Captain Hune is waiting to meet you. She has much to show you, and much to explain." Kale looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew, fear and wonder mixed in equal measure. Everything they thought they knew about the galaxy, about their history, about the very nature of space itself, was crumbling around them, sir, Nira said quietly. Whatever these humans have become, they're not threatening us. My sensors show they could have destroyed our entire fleet the moment we entered their space. Instead, they're offering us hospitality. And they're keeping dead stars alive, added Dex. The engineering required for that is beyond anything we've ever imagined. Kyle made his decision. Set course for their station, but keep all weapons ready and shields up. Admiral, the human voice said, and there was gentle amusement in it now. Your weapons could not harm us, and your shields will not protect you from what we could do. But neither matters, because we have spent 10,000 years learning that violence is the path of the weak. We have found better ways. As the fleet moved toward the impossible structures hanging in the void, Kale wondered what his ancestors had really done when they drove humanity to the edge of everything. What had they created in their fear? What had they unleashed by trying to destroy a species that refused to die? Soon he would find out. Soon the galaxy would learn what humanity had become in the dark between the stars, and that knowledge would change everything. The human historian Bora looked nothing like the warriors from the ancient council legends. She was elderly by human standards, with silver hair and gentle eyes that held the weight of terrible knowledge. The archive chamber around her contained more data than most planetary libraries. Before we discuss the galaxy's future, Bora said to the assembled alien delegation, you must understand your past. The real past, not the stories your ancestors told you. Admiral Kale shifted uncomfortably. Our records speak of an ancient threat, a violent species that had to be stopped before they could spread across the galaxy. Your records lie, Bora said simply, not because your ancestors wanted to deceive you, but because they needed to deceive themselves. She activated a holographic display that filled the chamber with images from 10,000 years ago. The aliens saw planets they recognized, but different. Younger. The early civilizations of the Galactic Council were smaller, more primitive. This was your galaxy when we first made contact, Bora explained. 17 species had just discovered faster than light travel. The universe seemed infinite and full of possibilities. The images changed, showing human ships alongside alien vessels, humans working with Vorthak engineers, human scientists sharing data with Zephyrian researchers, human artists creating beauty with mollusk poets. We worked together for 300 years, Bora continued. Humans contributed our engineering skills, our adaptability, our drive to explore. Your species contributed your unique perspectives, your technologies, your wisdom. It was a golden age. Then what happened? Commander Nira asked, though her expression suggested she feared the answer. The historian's face darkened. Fear happened. Jealousy happened. Politics happened. New images appeared showing human colonies throughout the galaxy. Worlds transformed by human engineering, space stations that defied conventional physics, terraforming projects that brought life to dead worlds. Humans adapt quickly, Bora said. We learn fast, we build fast, we spread fast. What took your species millennia to develop, we accomplished in centuries. Some of your leaders began to worry. Worry about what? Scout Captain Dex asked. About being left behind, a new voice said. Jun, the human archaeologist, entered the chamber carrying data tablets covered in ancient text. About becoming irrelevant in their own galaxy. Jun placed the tablets on the central display table. The alien delegates leaned forward to read text in languages they recognized as their own ancestors' writing. These are council records from 9,000 years ago, Jun explained. Classified documents we've spent centuries gathering from archaeological sites across the galaxy. They tell the real story. Admiral Kale read from one of the tablets, his voice growing smaller with each word. Meeting of the Inner Circle. Subject, the human problem. Recommendation, containment through gradual isolation. Humans must be removed from key positions of influence. Keep reading, Jun said grimly. Phase 2, economic pressure. Restrict human access to essential resources. Force human colonies to become dependent on council support. And Phase 3? Nira asked, though she already knew. Bora answered for her. Direct action. Your ancestors convinced themselves that humans were a threat to galactic stability. They manufactured evidence of human aggression, staged attacks on peaceful species, created false flag operations to make humans look like conquerors. The chamber filled with new images, human colonies under attack by ships flying council colors, human families being forcibly relocated to transportation vessels, human children crying as they were separated from alien friends they had grown up with. The purge took 7 years to complete, June said, his voice steady, but his eyes filled with old pain. Every human in council space was either killed or driven out. Your ancestors made sure we had nowhere to go except the dark between galaxies. But we fought back, didn't we? Kale asked desperately. The records show human ships attacking council vessels. Yes, Bora admitted. We fought back. We tried to defend ourselves, tried to protect our colonies, tried to save our families, and every act of self-defense was used as proof that we were the monsters your ancestors claimed we were. The holographic display now showed the final phase. Massive human exodus fleets heading toward the galactic edge, pursued by council forces that made sure none could return. 10 million humans were driven into the void, June said. Children who had never known violence, scientists who had devoted their lives to peaceful research, artists whose only crime was creating beauty. All of them condemned to die in the cold dark between stars. But you didn't die, Nira whispered. No, Bora said with a bitter smile. We didn't die. We learned. We adapted. We survived. And eventually we thrived. Your ancestors thought they had solved their problem, June continued. They rewrote the histories, turned humans into mythical monsters, and built their civilization on the foundation of our exile. They taught their children that they had saved the galaxy from a terrible threat. And the children taught their children, and so on, until the truth became lost even to those who had ordered our destruction, Bora added. Admiral Kale stared at the ancient records, his worldview crumbling. How many of our people know the truth? None, Jun said. Your species genuinely believe the stories they've been told. The real conspiracy was kept so secret that even the conspirators' descendants don't know about it. But you do, Dex said. You've known all along. We've known, Bora confirmed. We've watched your civilizations grow and prosper, built on the lie of our evil. We've seen species that were once our friends celebrate holidays commemorating their victory over the human threat. Why didn't you tell us? Nira asked. Why didn't you reveal the truth years ago? Because the truth would have destroyed you, Jun replied. Your entire galactic civilization is built on a foundation of genocide. Every law, every treaty, every peaceful cooperation between species exists because your ancestors united against a common enemy that was never actually your enemy. If we had revealed ourselves too early, your civilization would have collapsed into civil war and chaos, Bora explained. Species would have turned against each other, blaming each other for ancient crimes. Billions would have died. The chamber fell silent as the weight of the revelation settled on the alien delegation. Everything they thought they knew about their history, their civilization, their very identity was built on a lie. So why tell us now? Kale asked finally. Bora and June exchanged a look that spoke of long debates and difficult decisions. Because, June said quietly, the galaxy is dying faster than we can save it alone. And there are things coming from the deep dark between galaxies that make our ancient exile look like a minor disagreement. Things that will require all of us working together to survive, Bora added. Humans and aliens, former enemies united against a threat that could end all life in this galaxy. But first, June said, placing his hand on the ancient records, your people need to learn the truth. All of it, no matter how much it hurts. The truth was already spreading through the galactic communication networks, transmitted by the human delegation's impossible technology. Across thousands of worlds, billions of beings were about to learn that their entire civilization was built on the greatest lie ever told. And in the dark spaces between galaxies, ancient things that had been sleeping for eons began to stir, drawn by the scent of a galaxy divided against itself. The galactic communication networks burned with chaos. Across 10,000 worlds, protests erupted as species turned against their own governments. Ancient treaties crumbled as civilizations accused each other of hiding the truth about humanity's exile. The Zephyrian Parliament voted to dissolve itself in shame. 3 Vorthak colony worlds declared independence rather than be associated with their ancestors' crimes. In the Council's main assembly chamber on Galactic Central, emergency sessions devolved into shouting matches and accusations. Some species demanded immediate military action against humanity, calling them a long-delayed threat that must be contained. Others wept openly for the genocide their ancestors had committed. Still others simply shut down their communication networks and retreated into isolation. But at Horizon's End, in a quiet chamber overlooking the impossible stellar gardens, a different conversation was taking place. Dong sat across from the alien delegation, his presence somehow filling the room despite his unremarkable appearance. The humans called him their philosopher king, though he wore no crown and carried no symbols of authority. His eyes held depths that suggested he had seen the birth and death of stars. "Your galaxy is tearing itself apart," he observed calmly, watching news feeds from across council space. "Just as we knew it would when the truth came out." "Then why did you tell them?" Admiral Kale demanded, his carefully maintained composure finally cracking. "Why destroy everything we've built?" "Because what you built was never meant to last," Dong replied gently. "A civilization founded on lies will always collapse eventually. Better to tear it down carefully and rebuild it properly, than to watch it fall into chaos when the lies can no longer be maintained." Commander Nira leaned forward, her scientific mind still trying to process everything she had learned. "But what you've become out here, how is any of this possible? 10,000 years ago, humans were barely more advanced than we were. Now you're moving stars and folding space. Exile teaches you things that comfort never can," Dong said. "When you have no planets, you learn to build them. When you have no stars, you learn to create them. When you have no allies, you learn to become worthy of friendship." "But the technology," Scout Captain Dex insisted. "The engineering required to do what you do is beyond anything we've ever imagined." "Is it?" Dong asked. "Or have you simply never been desperate enough to imagine it?" He gestured to the window, where they could see one of the massive stellar engineering projects in progress. A dying red giant was being carefully disassembled, its matter being used to fuel 3 smaller, more stable stars that would burn for billions of years longer. "We spent our first 1,000 years in exile just trying to survive," Dong explained. "No planets to live on, no stars to warm us, no resources except what we could salvage from our ships. Do you know what that teaches you?" "What?" Nira whispered. "That everything you thought was impossible is simply something you haven't figured out how to do yet." A new voice joined the conversation as Yoon, humanity's ambassador, entered the chamber. Where Dong radiated calm wisdom, Yoon carried the weight of difficult decisions and harder choices. "The galaxy is learning what we learned 10,000 years ago," she said, settling into a chair that seemed to adjust itself to her presence. "That the universe is not kind, not fair, and not interested in your survival. But it is also not malicious. It simply is, and once you accept that, you can start learning to work with it instead of against it." "Work with it how?" Kale asked. "By understanding that you are not separate from the universe," Dong replied. "You are part of it. When you harm another species, you harm the whole. When you help another species thrive, you strengthen the whole." "But your ancestors drove us out," Yoon added, her tone matter-of-fact rather than accusatory. "They were afraid of us, jealous of us, worried that we would take over their galaxy. And in their fear, they committed a great crime. So why aren't you angry?" Dex demanded. "Why aren't you seeking revenge?" "Because anger is a luxury we couldn't afford," Dong said simply. "When you're trying to keep your children alive in the void between galaxies, you don't have energy to waste on hatred. You put it into solutions instead." Yoon activated a display showing the vast network of human settlements throughout the dark spaces, thousands of stations, millions of ships, entire civilizations that existed in places where life should have been impossible. "We learned to see exile not as punishment, but as opportunity," she explained. "Your ancestors thought they were condemning us to death. Instead, they freed us from the limitations of thinking small. While you built your civilization inside the galaxy, we built ours around it," Dong added. "We learned to see the galaxy not as a collection of separate worlds and species, but as a single living system that needed tending. Which is why we've been secretly maintaining it all this time," Yoon continued. "Preventing stellar catastrophes, deflecting cosmic disasters, keeping trade routes stable. Not because we owed you anything, but because a healthy galaxy is better for everyone who lives in it." The alien delegates sat in stunned silence, processing the implications. While their civilizations had been focused on internal politics and territorial disputes, humanity had been quietly becoming the galaxy's gardeners. "The greatest irony," Dong said with a sad smile, is that your ancestors got exactly what they were afraid of. Humans did take over the galaxy. We just did it so carefully that no one noticed. You're ruling us? Kale asked, alarm creeping into his voice. No, Yoon said firmly. We're serving you. There's a difference. A ruler takes from their subjects. A servant gives to them. But why? Nira asked. After what our ancestors did to you, why would you serve us? Because exile taught us the most important lesson in the universe, Dong replied. That there is no us and them, there is only us. We are all children of the same cosmic forces, all passengers on the same galactic ship. When some of us suffer, all of us are diminished. Your ancestors were wrong about many things, Yoon added. But they were right about one thing: humans are different. We do adapt faster, learn quicker, spread more rapidly than other species. But they misunderstood what that meant. What did it mean? Dex asked. It meant we were meant to be helpers, Dong said. Teachers. Gardeners. The species that prepares the way for others to flourish. Outside the window, another impossible sight unfolded as a human engineering ship delicately extracted a planet from a dying solar system and began moving it toward a younger, more stable star. On that planet, according to the ship's manifest, lived 4 billion beings who had no idea their entire world was being relocated to safety. This is what we became in the dark, Yoon said quietly. Not conquerors, not rulers, not the monsters your ancestors feared. We became what the galaxy needed us to become. But now, Dong added, his expression growing serious, we need help, because something is coming from the deep dark that is beyond even our ability to handle alone. Something that will require every species in the galaxy working together, Yoon finished, including the species that once cast us out. The chamber fell silent except for the distant hum of stellar engines moving impossible amounts of matter across impossible distances, all in service of life they had never met and worlds they would never visit. It was, Admiral Kale realized, the most profound form of love he had ever witnessed. Su stood at the center of humanity's greatest achievement, the cosmic heart, a massive stellar engineering station that existed simultaneously in 17 different dimensions. Around her, displays showed the true state of the galaxy, hidden patterns that no single species had ever been meant to see. Show them, she said quietly to her assistant. And the chamber's walls became transparent, revealing the most closely guarded secret in the universe. The alien delegation gasped as they saw their galaxy from the outside, from the perspective of the void between galaxies. What they saw was not the vibrant spiral of stars they had always known, but something far more fragile and terrifying. Your galaxy is dying, Sue explained, her voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. It has been dying for 3 million years and the process is accelerating. The display zoomed in, showing dark patches spreading through the spiral arms like some cosmic disease. Stars were flickering out faster than new ones could be born. Entire stellar nurseries were going cold and dark. This is impossible, Commander Nira breathed. Galaxies don't just die. They evolve, they change, but they don't simply stop functioning. Under normal circumstances, you would be correct, said Wu, the eldest human present. His ancient eyes held memories spanning centuries of careful observation. But these are not normal circumstances. What's causing it? Admiral Kale demanded. Time, Sue replied simply. Entropy, the natural progression of a universe that has been expanding for 14 billion years. Your galaxy has reached the point where it uses more energy than it produces. The stellar formation rate has dropped below the death rate. Without intervention, every star in your galaxy will be dead within 50 million years. 50 million years is a long time. Scout Captain Dex protested weakly. Not when you're trying to save 3 trillion living beings, Wu replied. Not when you're trying to preserve millions of unique species, billions of worlds, countless works of art and literature and music and love. Sue gestured, and the display changed to show the human response to the crisis. Massive engineering projects stretched across the dark spaces between galaxies. Ships the size of moons carefully harvesting matter from dead systems and using it to fuel dying stars. Stellar nurseries being artificially created in regions that should have been too cold and empty to support star formation. For 8,000 years, we have been secretly performing galactic life support, Sue explained. Every star that should have died but didn't. Every stellar nursery that formed in the wrong place. Every cosmic disaster that mysteriously failed to happen. That was us. The silent protections, Nira whispered. finally understanding the true scope of what she was seeing. "We've been buying time," Wu said, "extending the galaxy's natural lifespan while we searched for a permanent solution. But we've reached the limits of what we can do alone. The dark matter currents that feed stellar formation are failing throughout this galactic cluster," Su continued. "Soon, no amount of stellar engineering will be enough to maintain the energy levels needed to support complex life." "So what's the solution?" Kyle asked, though he suspected he already knew. "Migration," Su said simply. "We need to move every living being in this galaxy to younger, healthier galactic systems. The Andromeda Galaxy is perfect, young, energetic, with billions of years of stable stellar formation ahead of it." The aliens stared at her in stunned silence. The scope of what she was suggesting was beyond comprehension. "Move an entire galaxy's worth of life?" Dex asked weakly. "Billions of worlds? Trillions of beings? The alternative is to watch them all die," Wu replied matter-of-factly. "We have the technology. We have the knowledge. What we don't have is the cooperation of the species we're trying to save. Because they don't know they need saving," Nira realized. "Exactly," Su confirmed. "Your species have been so focused on local politics and territorial disputes that you've never looked at the bigger picture. You've never seen the galaxy as a single living system." "But we do," said Ray, entering the chamber with a presence that seemed to quiet the very air around her. She spoke for all of humanity now, carrying the weight of 10,000 years of exile and service. "We've spent millennia learning to see the connections, the patterns, the flows of energy and matter that bind all life together. Which is why," she continued, "we're offering not just to save your species, but to teach you how to become saviors yourselves, how to be gardeners of cosmic life instead of just consumers of cosmic resources." Admiral Kale felt something shift inside him, a fundamental change in his understanding of his place in the universe. "You're asking us to become like you." "We're asking you to become what you were always meant to be," Ray replied. "What all sentient species are meant to become eventually. Shepherds of life, protectors of the cosmic garden, servants of something greater than themselves. But first," she added, her voice growing firm, "your species need to stop fighting each other and start working together. The chaos spreading through Council space right now is exactly what we were afraid would happen when the truth came out." "How do we fix it?" Kale asked. "How do we heal the damage our ancestors did?" "By accepting responsibility," Wu said. "By admitting the truth to your people even though it will hurt. By choosing to build something better on the foundation of that truth. By joining us," Su added, "not as subjects or servants, but as partners in the greatest rescue mission in the history of the universe." Ray gestured to the displays showing the dying galaxy and the vast human infrastructure working to save it. "We can't do this alone anymore. The scale is too large, the time too short. We need every species, every world, every brilliant mind working together." "What would you need us to do?" Nira asked. "Learn," Ray replied simply. "Learn to see the galaxy as we see it. Learn to work with cosmic forces instead of against them. Learn to think in terms of millions of years instead of just decades. Learn to love life more than you love being right," Wu added. "More than you love being in control. More than you love feeling superior to others. Can we do that?" Kale asked, his voice small. "Can our species change that much?" "Exile forced us to change," Su said gently. "Perhaps hope will be a gentler teacher for you." As if responding to her words, something extraordinary began to happen. Throughout the galaxy, stars that had been steadily dimming began to pulse with renewed brightness. The stellar engineering projects hidden in the dark spaces revealed themselves, becoming visible to every observatory on every world. "What's happening?" Dex asked in wonder. "We're ending the secrecy," Ray explained. "We're showing your people what we've been doing all along, letting them see the hidden infrastructure that has been keeping them alive." Across the galaxy, billions of beings looked up at their night skies to see patterns of light they had never noticed before. Stars arranged in impossible configurations, streams of energy flowing between stellar systems, the vast, beautiful machinery of cosmic life support made visible at last. "They're beautiful," Nira whispered, watching the displays. "They're hope," Wu corrected. "They're proof that even in the darkest void, life finds a way. That even after the worst betrayal, forgiveness is possible. That even when all seems lost, love endures." The stars themselves seemed to respond to his words, pulsing brighter in harmonious waves that spread across the galaxy like a song of light. It was, Admiral Kale realized, the universe itself weeping tears of joy at the reunion of its children. The age of exile is ending, Ray said quietly. The age of healing begins now. And in the vast stellar gardens hanging in the void between galaxies, humanity waited with patient love for their long-lost family to come home. The docking bay of Horizon's End was unlike anything in the Galactic Council's records. The walls seemed to bend light itself, creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. Gravity flowed in impossible directions, allowing the massive alien ships to dock safely despite their different designs. Captain Hyun waited at the airlock, flanked by two other humans. She was smaller than Admiral Kale had expected, with dark hair and calm brown eyes that seemed to hold the weight of centuries. Her companions looked equally unremarkable by galactic standards, yet something about them made the alien visitors feel like children meeting adults for the first time. "Welcome to Horizon's End," Hyun said, her voice carrying the same gentle tone they had heard over the communications. "I am Captain Hyun. This is Dr. Mina, our head of xenological studies, and Engineer Tae, who designed most of what you see around you." Dr. Mina stepped forward, her movements fluid and precise. "We have been preparing for this meeting for a very long time. Please don't be afraid. We know our existence comes as a shock." "Afraid?" Admiral Kale tried to project strength, but his voice betrayed his uncertainty. "We are representatives of the Galactic Council. We have faced unknown species before, but never species that knew you were coming before you did," said Engineer Tae with a slight smile. "Never species that have been watching your civilization grow from children playing with fire to adults reaching for the stars." Commander Nira could not contain her scientific curiosity. "How is this place even possible? My readings show we're inside a structure larger than most moons, but from outside it appeared much smaller." "Folded space," Tae explained simply. "When you have no planets to build on, you learn to fold space itself into useful shapes. This station exists in 17 different dimensions simultaneously." "That's impossible," Scout Captain Dex protested, his tentacles writhing with agitation. "Our best scientists say space-time folding on that scale would require energy equal to several star systems." "Yes," said Dr. Mina, "which is why we had to learn to build star systems. Come, let us show you something that will help you understand." They led the alien delegation through corridors that seemed to stretch infinitely in some directions, while curving back on themselves in others. Windows showed views of the stellar arrangements they had seen from space, but also views of places that clearly existed somewhere else entirely. "Are we still on your station?" asked Nira, staring out at what appeared to be a vast garden world under an alien sun. "You are on Horizon's End, which is currently connected to New Sol, which orbits a star we rescued from heat death about 300 years ago," Hyun explained. "Distance has different meanings when you can fold space." They entered a vast chamber with a transparent ceiling that showed the dark void above them. But as they watched, stars began to appear in the blackness, growing brighter and moving into new positions. "We are currently relocating the Kepler 442 system," Tae said casually, as if moving entire solar systems was as simple as rearranging furniture. Its star was beginning to fail, and there are 7 billion Terran-type life forms on the fourth planet. We'll give it a few more billion years of stable energy." The aliens stared in stunned silence as they watched planets the size of their homeworlds being gently guided into new orbits around a rejuvenated star. "Why?" Kale finally managed to ask. "Why save worlds you've never been to? Why care about species you don't know?" "Because that's what we learned in the dark," Dr. Mina replied. "When your ancestors drove us out, they thought they were protecting the galaxy from us. But they taught us the most important lesson we ever learned, which was," Nira whispered, "that all life is connected," Hyun said, "that when you destroy one part of the web, the whole structure becomes weaker. Your ancestors were afraid we would take over the galaxy, rule it, control it. But we learned that the galaxy doesn't need rulers. It needs gardeners." Tae gestured to the stellar engineering happening above them. "We spent the first 1,000 years after our exile trying to survive. We spent the next 1,000 years learning to thrive. We've spent the last 8,000 years learning to give back." "Give back to whom?" asked Dex. "You said we drove you out. Why would you help us?" "Not help you," Mina corrected gently. "Help life itself. Every world we save, every star we repair, every system we relocate makes the galaxy stronger. And a stronger galaxy is better for everyone, including the species that exiled us." Admiral Kale felt something he had never experienced before. Shame. You're saying that while we built our civilization on the foundation your ancestors created, you've been maintaining the galaxy itself? Maintaining, protecting, nurturing, Hyun confirmed. We've been doing it so carefully that your species never even noticed. Stellar anomalies that prevented disasters, solar flares that were mysteriously deflected away from inhabited worlds, trade routes that stayed stable despite gravitational shifts that should have made them impossible. The silent protections, Nira breathed, her eyes wide. There are stories in our oldest records about impossible good fortune. Events that should have destroyed entire civilizations but somehow didn't happen. Those weren't stories, Tay said. Those were us. The truth hit the alien delegation like a physical blow. While their civilizations had grown and prospered, believing themselves to be the masters of their own destiny, humanity had been working in the shadows to ensure their survival. How many of you are there? Kale asked. Enough, Hyun replied. We spread throughout the dark spaces, the void regions, the areas between spiral arms. We built homes where no life should be able to exist. We learned to create rather than just consume. But why reveal yourselves now? Nira asked. Why break your secrecy after so long? Dr. Mina and Captain Hyun exchanged a look that spoke of long discussions and difficult decisions. Because, Mina said quietly, the galaxy is dying. And soon, even we won't be able to save it alone. The chamber fell silent except for the hum of impossible machinery, moving impossible amounts of matter across impossible distances. Above them, a star that had been dying for millions of years suddenly blazed with renewed life. And 7 billion beings on a distant world continued their lives without ever knowing how close they had come to extinction. The silence stretched until Admiral Kale spoke. His voice heavy with implications he was only beginning to understand. What do you need us to do?